country of Sint Maarten, this series is named, A Walk Down Memory Lane. It is the intent to present past and present events, or experiences relating to actions, or activities that took place on the island of Sint Maarten back in the days. These series are intended to educate and inform all involved the importance of fighting for what is right and that unity makes a difference. Our history defines us as a people. It's important to keep our history alive. Sint Maarten did not just get here. There is a past that we need to analyze, evaluate and examine to avoid making the same mistakes. Even though there's a lot not to be proud of, it's still our history and we need to pass it on to our future generation, so they can be better grounded and make better informed decisions than those that were made in the past, and most importantly to choose wisely based on facts. Let us from now on try to write a history that we can all be proud of. Some details of our history may be well known and some may be well forgotten. A walk down memory lane will reveal and remind us all of when, what, why and by whom actions and activities took place. It should serve as an eye-opener as to the reasons how did country Sint Maarten get here. It will reveal the realms of realities of our past and present political history rather than depending on outsiders telling us about his story. During this session of A Walk Down Memory Lane we will unmask 1. The good and the evil. 2. The best and the worst. 3. The honorable and the horrible facts or falsehoods, ignorance, betrayal, naivety and deceit. Yes, there will be certain circumstances where we will need to unmask the ugly, unpleasant but truthful story of the past and present happenings without hoax, hype and hostile hypocrisy. All for a better future and a better Sint Maarten for the next generations. Enjoy these episodes and feel free to add your experiences as well, and let's reminisce together on how did we get here country Sint Maarten? Where did we went wrong?
Where over the world, say where, you find an island there, so lovely small, with nations free, with people French and Dutch, though talking English much, as the Sint Maarten in the sea. Oh, sweet Sint Maarten's land, so bright by beach and strand, with sailors on the sea and harbors free, where the chains of mountains green variously in sunlight sheen. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice. How pretty between all green, flamboyance beaming green, of flowers red, by sunlight set, thy cows and sheep and goats, in meadows or on roads, thy donkeys king, I can't forget. Oh, sweet Sint Maarten's land, so bright by beach and strand, with sailors on the sea and harbors free, where the chains of mountains green variously in sunlight sheen. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice.
Okay, good afternoon again to our audience. We are here today outdoors, enjoying the view Too bad, or you can enjoy the view with me in another occasion. But it's part 3 of the segments, the series, How Did We Get Here, Country St. Maarten, part 3. If the audience recall, we have made some, we went into different years segment, and we were going through different things and discussing different topics, you know, of importance. And in one of the segments, I think it was part 1, we were discussing about the forts being sold and why it is a fort has been sold and different things. And I had promised the audience that I would look into that and go to the cadastre to check the documentation on that pertaining to the forts. Now, pertaining to fort, the Spanish fort, I was not able to get too much information. As a matter of fact, I am not trusting the information that was provided to me. But for the one for the Fort Amsterdam, I do have it. And indeed, the fort was sold. You know, I like to see facts. I like to see documentations and papers. So I went to ask for the inzage by the fort, by cadastre. And I have it here with me. I will post it as well underneath this video, so everybody can have a look at it, because anybody can ask for these things at the cadastre. And what I have here is the Fort Amsterdam. It was basically sold. It was sold and for $4.5 million in the year 1987. In the year 1987, it was sold. And the sale and purchase price was $4.225 million. And it was acquired with more real estate. That was done in 1987. And it was executed before the notary of Chongyang. Okay, here I see the section of mortgages and seizures, which it have a couple of them here. A couple of people put liens on top of that, which I honestly believe, you know, it should not be, because a fort is something that belongs to the country. It should have not been sold in the first place. And yeah, but again, these are things that we have to make sure that it doesn't happen or occur with our other landmarks and our other, you know, important monuments on country St. Maarten, those that are left as yet. I think it's important that we update our monumental list, and also add to those the old trees and different other small landmarks, and try to safeguard what we as a country have that identify us as a people. So I will add this to the video so people can have a look at it. The other thing that this one is, it's supposed to be for the Spanish fort, but I am not trusting the information that it have here. So I will be checking another person that works in the cadastre to see and verify this information before I make this one public. Okay, and I have another one as well that I requested, but this also I have to verify the information that is pertaining to the piece of land next to the cemetery in KB. So I will be looking into that with the family, and after that we will be following up on that with the audience. So these are the two informations that will be withheld. The other one, as promised, I obtain it and I will be putting it on top of underneath the video. But I believe that personally, landmarks and other important things option monuments of country St. Maarten has to be safeguarded and protected. But Mr. James, you work in the cadastre for a long time.
Building inspection. Building and housing inspection.
Building and housing inspection. That's a ministry for Romy, right?
That is Romy.
Yes.
Cadastre was in those days a federal institution.
Okay.
While the building and housing inspection, which you call today Romy, that was insular. Island territory. But then we have to work closely together because it has to do with property, it has to do with a landmark, it has to do with border points and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we have to work very closely to make sure that the document that the people bring towards us is good, is genuine, documents before we can issue a building permit to build or whatever development is they're asking for to be conducted on that property.
So what can you tell me, you that have worked for so many years in that ministry, right? Under that particular function. Can you give us like a synopsis from what will be a daily task and what are the things that stood out for you and the different developments that happen on the island when it comes to executing your task?
What was very important was that the fact they wanted to, the government had wanted a hands-on, what you call it, approach on the development on the island, that people was building a left, right, and center, and they wanted to stop that. So therefore, they asked me, they entrusted me then with the leadership to organize the building, housing inspection. And the work that entails there is twofold. Administration, that's in-house, get everything documented, everything registered, and know exactly what you have outside there. And then we had outside work. So you have to go outside there and see to it that the people are building according to the building permit and what have you. In those days, it was very tough because due to the fact people could have built left, right, and center without any type of guidance from the government. So we had a lot of what you call resistance, but then later everybody fall in line. I could recall that when I started to do outside inspection, that the island government instructed what you call it, the lieutenant governor, that's the late Mr. Punt, instructed him to tell Mr. James that he's not allowed to do any more outside inspection, that he focus only on the administrative work, which is inside work and what have you. But I knew exactly why they did that for, because apparently I might have gone outside and stopped people from building who happened to be part of their flock.
Okay.
So I just had to go along with the instruction, and in the meantime, that was what they wanted to avoid, is exactly is what happened, because other people were building outside here, which they didn't want. So after they gave instruction to Lieutenant Governor Punt to stop me from doing outside job, they realized that people outside their building who they didn't want to build. So therefore they tell Mr. Punt, tell Mr. James that he can resume the activity of outside inspection, but they want to point out to me where I supposed to go to stop people from building. That was not going to happen. It never happened. So when they gave instruction for me to go back out to start inspection, I went to places where they didn't expect me to go. The first place I went was in Point Blanche, and we had a survey up there to see exactly who's building from who's not building without a permit. And it happened. So the first place that we stopped was where Richard Luckett, who happened to be the acting lieutenant governor. He was building without a permit, and I stopped him from building. Then we came down to that's between Point Blanche and Euroskina Plain. No, we came down, we came down to SS Supermarket. SS Supermarket, that was a supermarket happened to be from Chesterwatty. And they were expanding and what have you, renovating and expanding. They didn't have no permits. I stopped them from building. Then I went down to Sint Maarten, PYC, as Private Yacht Center, that happened to be also from the what is them. They were building with a permit, and I stopped them from building. And also Point Blank, no, also Island Water Roll, there was also another what he was building with a permit, because they had want me to go to areas like, for instance, where at that time, Mr. Velasquez, he was start filling there to build his marina. And apparently Velasquez was not part of their political clan, so they wanted me to stop Velasquez from building. Then they wanted me to come down back street by Mr. Bernard Gums, where the supermarket is. He had 2 stories and he wanted to go 4. And they want me to stop him from going up, expanding. Then they wanted me to stop Justin Arnold, there by Afu, from building. Then they wanted me to stop Mr. Van James down by GB from building, and also Mr. Rupert Maynard, I Maynard, who started his sector down there. They wanted me to stop him from building. But I decided, no, you're not going to tell me where to go. So I went just the opposite way. I went by Point Blanche to stop the lieutenant governor from building, because he had no permit. And he's supposed to set, you know, the example of how it's supposed to be done. Then I came down by SSS Supermarket. They were expanding and renovating. They had no permit, and I stopped them from building. So I did things what I figured that needs to be done, instead of using what you call it, the political intention of go there and correct my work, which I didn't do.
Okay. So basically you was executing your job, and you was basically keeping it based on the law. So it ain't about selecting who and what. Is about you're supposed to have a building permit. If you don't have a building permit, it doesn't matter if you have this last name or that last name. If you don't have a building permit, we're stopping you. So you were doing the right thing according to how it's supposed to be. Have you been how would I say, victimized after that by executing the job that you're supposed to have been doing, and the way you was carrying out the function because of doing that?
Yes, I was victimized. So what happened? Because me and the late Mr. Pont, we work hand in hand, very good. And as soon the time for Mr. Pont was up, is when they asked me to remove me from the building housing inspection. And I turned it over to Host Ritchie, who later on turned it over to Dollison, who later on turned it over to Mr. Brown.
Okay. So basically you were not, they did not want you to continue executing your function, and they replace you by someone else that they feel that they could have manipulate the way. But were these people qualified though, at least? Did they have knowledge? Were they qualified at least to execute?
Yes, they had knowledge, but the fact is, it is not about what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And where your loyalty lies.
Okay. So basically we can say that those things happen from since back then.
Since back in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Early 80s.
And what can you say that basically has stimulated that government, operate this way? That they only choose those that go according to them.
The fact is, you must understand, in those days, like I said again, you had no opposition.
Yeah.
You had a Democrat administration. But of course, not everybody on Sint Maarten had agreed with the administration. So you had resistance from people who didn't like what's going on, but they were not organized because there was no party.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you had opened your mouth at that time, you were just victimized. You couldn't go to a representative of a party to defend you because there was no opposition party then.
Okay.
So Democrat Party, they had all the power to say what is what, how things supposed to be done, and you just had to go along.
And how long did they stay? Did that stay like that? How long was that the case?
That stayed quite some time until, like I said, the late Mr. Mervyn Scott, who started the Whipping Party.
Yeah.
Good. When he got the first seat, I can't recall when that was, when they got a first seat, then I had Mr. Jocelyn Arnell.
Mhm,
He was then the Island Council member representing what you call it, the opposition.
mhm.
Good. And then later, the opposition over the many years, you had different opposition party that came into existence, but the weapon disappeared. And then you had what you call it, the SPM.
Mhm,
SPM that took over the Vandal from the Whipham,
mhm.
and they were much more progressive and much more organized. Good. They get more seats into the council,
Mhm.
and later they too changed from transfer from SPM into SPA, St. Maarten Patriotic Alliance, and then later the transfer into the National Alliance. So they went through different phases, and as the year go by, the
Mhm.
opposition get much more organized and they get much more stronger and they get the support for the people until they get into the government.
Okay. And that's how other political parties came about as well.
That's way how the other political parties came around. Yeah.
So after that, you had the it was the SPM
Just
first,
SPM first,
and then the SPA.
then the SPA. So first they had the whip
Yes.
under Mr. Scott, Mervyn Scott,
Mhm,
but he happened to reach one seat after many years fighting just to have a voice in the council.
mhm.
And then later he gave up, but he worked along with the opposition party who formed then the SPM.
Okay.
And they were much more successful. They got more seats into the council.
So then it had two parties alone,
Then there are two
Democrat
parties.
and the SPM.
SPM. They were the only two parties. And from being opposition over the years, they grow into a powerhouse until they get into the governments
Yeah.
and what have you.
Okay. So then in which year did we start getting the other political parties?
Was here?
In which
I
years?
can't recall which
After the
year.
SPM, which was the other party that started up?
After the SPM was SPA, and then came the NA.
Then the NA.
Then the NA.
Then you had then you had the Democrats, then you had NA.
NA.
Then you had all the other parties that start off. Like
They had other
Russia.
parties, but they didn't reach anywhere.
Okay.
They didn't reach anywhere.
So basically, can we conclude then that basically the country has been run for a long time under the Democratic Party, under
Administration.
the leadership of the Democratic Party, and afterwards the SPA and SPM, which is
NA.
now the NA.
Correct.
How do you feel, you that have been there for a long time, what are the developments that you can say, hey, these are positive developments under this administration, and what are the negative developments under this administration?
Well, like I said, the negative, you had some positive in the past, but you had a lot of negative because due to the fact, you must understand, not everybody will go along with the administration. And then if you didn't go along, you was victimized.
Yeah.
You lose your job. And there was many other things that the force in those days had certain people who stood up, like for instance, certain policemen who voiced opinion, and they are St. Maarten's policemen, and you wouldn't believe they had to leave St. Maarten, was shipped to Bonnier.
Wow. Is it that bad?
I think Mr. Lloyd Richardson, grandfather, was a policeman, and the DP administration called on the central government to have him removed from St. Maarten and send him to Bonnier.
But was it that bad that they had to leave the country?
Well,
Was that
you see, the central government, used to just go along with the Democrat administration because they were the only party on St. Maarten. So they'll please the leadership by going along and ask the police, transfer the police from St. Maarten to Bonnier and what have you. They went along with it.
Oh. You know what I see that is like a trend? I see a trend in, the present and the past, the victimization is something that
It's continuing, yeah.
Yes, it's continuing.
It's still continuing.
And that might be the reason why people are afraid of one voicing their opinion.
Afraid to open the mouth, afraid to voice
are-
opinion.
Yes, people have turned a blind eye to things that is wrong, things that they see happening around them that is wrong. Because at the end of the day, they don't have no one to, to protect them. So basically, if they want to feed their family, they will rather stay quiet and, not open their mouth against something that is not good because, hey, ain't have nobody there to help them all how. So I believe that it is something that that's the reason why the wrong things continue
It
happening.
has to change. It has to change because, like I said again, it's happening right now. How difficult for you to get people who wants you need to get it to go with you into government to bring a change, and it's difficult to find people.
Yeah.
They're seeing it, and when you ask them to come on board, they prefer not. So
Yeah.
that spirit is still there of being afraid to take a stand in the society. Only a few people will stand up and say, look here, they will, voice the opinion, irregardless if it's against the government or whatnot, but they just voice the opinion. So they have that guts and gall to stand up and voice the opinion, whether it's the way you call it, it's against the administration, whether it's in favor of the administration or whatnot. That you have just a few people who can take that stand.
Okay. What can you tell me about the years? So we are still, according to your timeline here, we are still in the years 1972 when we were talking about the different reports, which I still have to finish read. And okay, let's jump a little bit. From 1972 to 2010. What can you tell me about the year 2010? What all happened there?
The fact that I said in the beginning, when Sint Maarten was just a sleeping island, the central government didn't care much about Sint Maarten, and they left the Democrats Party, the DP administration, do whatever they wanted. But by the time Sint Maarten became a little bit more active and they started bringing tourism to the country and more dollars started to circulate, the central government they woke up and said, okay, it's time now that you're going to start contributing.
Yeah.
And of course, the administration didn't like that. Good. And they wasn't cooperating because, like I said, for instance, the central government said, now it's time for us to get some money. So let's open a tax office in Sint Maarten and send Pedro Maria here to start the ball rolling. And I can recall when the leader of the Democrat Party got on the radio and said, look here, you don't have to cooperate with him. It's your property. You don't have to pay nobody anything for that. You understand? And they tried to boycott Mr. Maria with his on his mission to get the tax office up and running. But he persisted until it started to work. They have a tax office here on the island, but he had it very tough and what have you. So the DP party was not happy that the central government was knocking on the door, said it's time for you to start to contribute. It's like, then he started rising up the people, oh, the central government is interfering in Sint Maarten, and it's time for us to break away from Sint Maarten. And there's where the rebellion start becoming more and more evident, what have you. And therefore, since he didn't want to cooperate so easy, you had the central government who have the power, send different organization, institution here to investigate the administration, and then we get the different reports, Buckley's report, Fourier report, Suzy Römer report, and the integrity report, and what have you. And it go beyond that where he was calling for independence.
Okay.
Good. And you recall that we had two referendums. The first referendum, they said the first referendum was binding, but it didn't turn out to be in their favor because they had wanted independence.
Yeah.
And the Sint Maarten said no. And because they said no, and therefore that issue would have been dead.
Yeah.
But they were not happy with that because they want to break away from Curacao. So they had a second referendum where they said, no, that one will not be binding, it will be consultative of nature. And it turned out to be that people had wanted not, they didn't want independent neither, they had wanted to, what you call it, a reorganization of the elderlies and what have you.
Okay. So, what was the status then with GB?
What's that?
What was the status with GB?
The status of GB?
Yeah.
GB status at that time, since we had wanted to bring more structure in the development in St. Maarten, so you don't get these people building left, right, and center and what have you, to go into that direction and put more structure, you needed then all the various government institutions that have a problem with these people building left, right, and center. So we had a meeting with the hygiene department. Every week we had a meeting with the hygiene department because people was building left, right, and center, and with the sewage running all over the place. We had also a meeting with the fire department because the building, what you call it, things out of wood. And then we had also GB for water and light. So we get all those various government departments that has to do with the structure. That if you have a problem with a permit, with one of these, let's say one of these institutions have a problem with the people building outside it, they can't get no permit until they meet all the requirements from all the 4 departments. What have you? So we said, if you want a building permit, if you want water and light, you must have a building permit. And for you to get a building permit, we got to see exactly where you're going to build a septic and how you're going to build a septic. So once you comply with all the various demands and requests from the institutions, then you get the building permit. So the building permit will be the last to be given, provided that the hygiene department is met. When you're doing a tall building and so, remember, you need fire extinguishers, you need sprinklers and what have you. You need parking lots, also entrances and exits and whatnot. So if those things are not met, then you cannot get the building permit. So the building permit is being kept back because those people have to carry those documents first to those departments. They have to go to the hygiene department to get clearance. And if it's a big structure, they have to go to the fire department to get clearance.
Because GB was being run by Mr. Julius Lambert, right? Mr. Julius Lambert is who was running GB. And then afterwards he got replaced.
What happened, Mr. Julius Lambert, he was the managing director. In fact, he came in and he worked along with Mr. Rodenberg. Rodenberg was the chief. And Mr. Lambert, who became an engineer, came to St. Maarten and he worked alongside with Mr. Rodenberg. And when Rodenberg's time was up, Mr. Lambert took it over, which he ran the plant very, very, very good. Why? Because he ran it from a professional point of view without any interference, or political interference, or what have you. Good. And after a while, the DP administration came back in power somehow at that time, and they removed Mr. Lambert, and they went to bring a group from Curacao to come here and let it take over and follow the instruction from the DP administration. But we had also a demonstration of that on the island, that where we decide, no, here again, you're going to get rid of the local, we're not going to stand for that. And the people stood up. And I can recall Mr. Chance, who was then minister, he made sure that Curacao group, that they had to leave. And he handed back the key to Mr. Lambert, and Lambert was restored back in office by the NA party. So you got this constant thing in the past that where the DP administration seemingly they don't want to help the people to reach to the level where they're supposed to be helped. So all the time you get that impression that as a St. Maarten, you got to be constantly fighting to your way to get in a situation that where you can enjoy a piece of the pie. And it's happening still. It's still happening.
Okay. So basically, at least Mr. Lambert got restored back. And he stayed there, and then afterwards, I know that
until he's pensioner, and he turned it over to Mr. The gentleman was the son from Golly, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Brooks.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
Well,
after that, Mr. Brooks left, and then now is.
Yes, then you got
yeah.
different type of other directors and what have you.
Okay, I see here that you have a note, our Minister Leo Chance of SPM sent that Curacao Group packing home and brought back our very own engineer, Mr. Julius Lambert. Okay, so basically it was DP that was in power then that happened.
Exactly.
And so with the oil protests, I'm saying like a trend, with the oil protests, with the protests from the heavy equipment.
That's
it was
much
DP.
earlier.
It was DP.
Much earlier. That's happened in
Then-
days when it was building the housing project. That's
Yes.
much earlier.
Then after that, what happened? Which other event it had after the heavy equipment protests before this one with the reinstallation of Mr. Lambert? Which other things stood out for you after that heavy equipment protest?
We didn't have much protests, except like again, I said, you had certain activities done by the community councils against government, sending people, for instance, down to the cemetery to remove the sand so they could undermine the graveyard, because they did it purposely, because they want the cemetery to remove from there and send it and put the cemetery in Orange Grove,
Yeah.
what have you. So you had certain, sparks here and there of a smaller nature and what have you.
But always supposed to be a area where families have land adjacent to each other, right? Orange Grove. Orange Grove belongs to a family. Is it still family owned or?
What happened?
Or what is?
I can't recall who Orange Grove had belongs to, but you can check it over the cadastre.
Mhm.
Orange Grove was bought by Albia Fleming.
Okay,
Good. And
but was it from?
what
Albert
happened
Fleming?
now? What happened now? He had wanted to build houses for people to come from Curacao to St. Maarten. People from St. Maarten said, no, we don't want that. We prefer that you develop in such a way for the people from St. Maarten first, not
Yeah.
to build houses and bring people from Curacao over here
Mhm.
and what have you. But that is what he had wanted to do. Albert Fleming, it is his property. But he was honest enough to sit down with the Colby Community Council and ask them how they like to see this property to be developed.
Okay,
And then apparently, since they didn't have no definite plan of besides saying don't build a house only for Curacao people to come here,
Mhm.
he then decided to lease out that property and sell the property, and people start building their own warehouses. That happened.
Okay. So basically, because I heard a different story. The story that was told to me was that the land belongs to the Browns, and the Browns gave it to somebody to keep to manage, and then the person then take it away, and then they build Almond Grove.
There are two, you've got mixed up. There are two groves. You have
The
Almond
Orange
Grove
Grove
and you have Orange Grove. Almond Grove is what you're talking about.
Okay, so that story is true.
Almond Grove.
Okay.
That's
So Almond Grove, what is the story with Almond Grove? Because to my understanding, I know that Colby is belonging to majority families.
Exactly.
Families adjacent to each other. And I know that part there from Almond Grove belonged to the Browns.
Yes, that side belongs to the Brown. So you were talking about Orange Grove. We were talking about Orange Grove is on the other side.
Okay.
But Almond Grove, that side is the Bronx and property. That's from tackling the station, go way back down to the Peters, and after the Peters, then you got the Belson property again.
Yeah.
Well, what I heard, certain family of the Bronx had entrusted their property to some Europeans. Later, they had different ideas with the property, and they had a dispute between these same people who they entrusted the property with and the original owners. There was a dispute.
Yeah.
And they lost part of the property. The Bronx family lost part of the property in this dispute. That the piece that they lost is the way called Almond Grove.
Almond Grove.
Hmm.
Okay. So they entrusted Europeans with the managing of the land.
Exact.
And in that managing of the land, these people
They fixed themselves up.
misappropriated the
Correct.
family
Property.
from the part.
Property.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that has happened a lot on the islands.
It happens a lot.
Happens a
It
lot.
happens a lot.
It's not supposed to, because
It's not supposed to be done, but it
No.
happens a lot. But sometimes too, politicians are behind of that. The politician in the past and the politician today, they're all hand in hand with developers. And these were developers, what happened, it happened with the Browns. So the politician will always tell the St. Maarten, you know what happened? You have a piece of property there, and let somebody else manage it for you. Let somebody take care of it for you.
But did this thing reach all the way to courts? Did this dispute reach the courts?
I have no idea, but I that spoke to some of the heirs, and they were not happy. Those who came from the States and was trying to fight back to get back that piece that they had entrusted to the people.
Yeah.
And they lost it.
I don't like when things are done in a way that is not correct. You know, it's not good when you misappropriate things from that is not belonging to you. It's not. It leaves a very bad and sour taste.
It's not good, but then at the same time too, if you have a government who really cares about the people, looking out for the people, they could assist the people, and from a government point of view, they could get things done so that people could get back their property. But as you know, government is not most of the time, they're not in the side of the owners.
That's fortunate.
They're not on the side of the owners of the property. They're on the side of the developers,
the investors.
what have you.
Yeah. You know, sometimes we from for other generation, because in my family from father's side, my great grandmother is Sarah Brown, Martha Brown from the other side. And because there are two sisters, Martha and Sarah Brown. And then you have my grandmother on the other side, Christiana Webster, which was daughter to Sarah. And from Martha Brown, my grandfather was, which is Carty, was son to her. And when you listen to the history, like, you know, how the different things happen. And sometimes you just have a lot of questions. You just pose yourself a lot of questions, like, how did people get away with things? But when you see nowadays how people do get away with things, you just say, you know, they're just becoming better and better in executing wrong things. Back then, it maybe was on a very low-key level, but as the years transpire, they get to be more creative and less ways for you to like restore what has been stolen.
Like I said again, instead the government defend the people, because the government have all the tools to do that. But they're siding mostly with the developers and the owners that are not up to date and versed with the laws and what have you. Good.
Yeah.
It's only lately we know about this, we know about that. At that time, we never care about a notary. We hardly know about a notary, hardly know about a permit, we know, you know, because through lack of knowledge, they get away.
Yeah.
So instead of government protect these people, they just let the people, you know, up to themselves, and they've been victimized by people who they had good intention to pass on to the people, let the people manage it for them. The people did it in such a way that they took away the land for them and what have you. Yeah. But like I said again, if government had protect those people, it's going to reach so far.
And my thing is, right, that that's the same trend we getting now too with the younger generation. A lot of the younger generation do not know a lot of the history.
Correct.
They do not know. And I blame both sides. I blame the sides of the older generation in not passing on this information or this knowledge over to the younger generation. I blame them because they like to keep things for themselves. but they have to realize that they're not going to be there forever.
Correct.
They have to pass on this information to the other generation.
Correct.
You understand? Because within the generation, you always will have some that are interested in family business, in the family properties, in the family history. You will always have those that are not interested.
Correct.
Like in my case, I always was interested in family tree. I always continue looking and searching for my family tree. And not precisely for, like other people will say, like, you know, for properties, I don't believe in it. I like to know what and how and who. I like to know the extent of everything. But I believe that knowledge is power.
It is
And I
power.
also believe that if you stand together as a family and you know where you're coming from, you know what are your possessions, what is your history, you stand stronger as a unity, and you defend what is yours, and you pass on this knowledge to the generation coming after. Because at the end of the day, Mr. James, we ain't taking nothing that we have here, you know.
That's true.
We are not taking anything. So I believe, and that's something that is happening so much on this country, that I realize you're passing and you're seeing so much of empty buildings, right? Because of family issues. People can come together to, you know, hey, let's put money together and let's rent the place from our parents, for instance. Everybody get a fair share, or this month is you to get that rent. Next month, you get in the rent. The next month, or at the end of the year, you know what? We split in the money. Everybody getting from it. We maintain the place like that. It have so many ways to deal with things.
Exactly.
But it's about the greed. Sometimes it's about the misunderstanding. And you know, families are divided because of things, you know.
Exactly.
And I believe it's time for the family to come together and iron out all your differences, you know. Iron out all your differences and put yourself in a better position as well. And it has so much properties that I see out there, Mr. James, that I believe there's so much that can be done with these properties, especially knowing that we need, you know, some old places, some places for older people, because we only have St. John's right now, the old people place. But I believe that it has so many other good locations that if the family come together and propose this as a unit to the government, that the government can, you know, have another location, that they can have it available for our pensioners and things like that. I mean, the building is there. Some of them you have to break down, but not all of them is in the state that you have to break them down, because I know that a lot of our buildings were built back then very strong. They withstand a lot of hurricane. You're still seeing them withstanding there. So why not fix some of those buildings to soothe and ease some of the needs that the country is facing? You understand? Like, for instance, also with this thing about all the schools that up there in St. Peter's, you know, it's something that, hey, I believe that was a cardinal mistake. I personally believe it was a cardinal mistake to put so many schools in one location.
Exactly.
And I believe along the years, there are ways that you can start spreading them over the country. Yes. I believe in district management.
Exactly.
I totally believe in that. Each district must have a library. Each district must have a medical facility, pharmacy. It must have a place, a recreational place where the children can go and the pensioners can go, the old people can go. And, you know, these two generations interact. I believe in that. I believe in sports facility in each district. I believe in a district management. A district must have a bakery, because remember, you have to take into account things that transpire during the years, especially with a hurricane. What were the weaknesses? The weaknesses were that basically we didn't know where the pensioners were living, because we don't have a map from each district from where we have our pensioners living. We do not have a map that indicates, hey, in these houses, we have people that are that need help not elderlies, but they need help. I don't have disabled people. And you have houses where you have one single parent. You need to pinpoint these type of things. You have to be prepared. And this is where the councils come in as well. And I believe that the councils has to be reactivated, but reactivated in a sense that is not politically binding. No, that's very difficult because you can see that the unions as well, they have been compromised.
Exactly.
They have been compromised. I don't care what nobody say, the unions has been compromised. And it's not no more about defending the people, but it is about negotiating to see how we can soothe, make it less painful for those that we are representing. It's about a playing of a game, there is a lot to be done as a country. And it's a step-by-step thing that we have to do, educational wise, on a national level, and also a change of mentality that goes along with it.
Another thing too, what I want to bring forward too is the short-sightedness of government when it has to do with bringing all the schools in one area, because that could be catastrophic if something happened there, God forbid, and everybody die. Yeah. All students are in one location.
Yep.
And it was purposely done for commercial purposes, because when you check all the schools that they had in town going up there, you check where the schools are. What do you have there? Stores.
Yeah.
So it was purposely done for commercial reason. Get all the schools out of town. I could recall there was aiming for the Oranje school until the people stood up and said, we stop here. That school ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the EP administration was about to move the school from there.
That was in which year?
That was, I can't recall. They had there was aiming, and there was making the approach to go and shut down the school and move the school out of town. So that was done just for commercial reasons. Another thing too, which I don't decide, they had the hillside policy to avoid, mudslide and too many houses being built on the hill and what have you. And the hill property is prime. Well, one way is true, but later on we see the onus is not what they're saying. The onus is just to force Sint Maarten people to sell the hillside properties. Simple as that. And if the hillside property is prime land, what about the beachfront that we local people can't go to the beach? Why didn't you regulate that? Why didn't you? So that's what I'm saying. The government, which especially the DP party, which been in power for so long and had no opposition to do things the right way. Certainly they did the right way, and a lot of things they did the wrong way. They have created this mess. Certain place, it was good. Other instances, it was just ill will.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because you're spending all the time to regulate the hillside development, hillside property, why didn't you regulate the beachfront? That today that nobody can go to the beach. Yeah. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah. And my thing is, right, I believe whenever you regulate something, the majority have to benefit from it. And the majority of our Sint Maarteners, including me, we are landowners. So whatever laws and things you are bringing into the picture, it should be beneficial for us. Definitely. as a people of the country. It has to be something that first and foremost we can see and find ourselves in, that the generations them coming after can benefit from it in one way or the other. It cannot be that others come and it is facilitated to them, and we are the ones who is only like put in a corner, that we are basically left with the only option to sell or give it over. I am not in agreement with that. I am in agreement with anything that promotes our people. Yes.
To develop especially because most of the properties and still all the hills, you can say 90% are in hands of St. Maarten people. Then we need a government who's very progressive and work along with the St. Maarten to develop the hill so it's beneficial to St. Maarten people. So the building you see on the hill will be St. Maarten owners.
I would like to take it in a different direction even, because I believe that agriculture is something that can benefit when you combine the hillside policy. You can use agriculture in the hills, because I am looking into different countries that are doing agriculture, and you can see up in the hills, of course, you have to do the selection of what type of produce you have, depending on how the sun and the lightning and all of those things, the vegetation, the type of vegetation that you have on top of that, that area. But you can definitely use that land, not only for building, but I believe we have to stimulate.
You have to balance it.
Yes,
you got to balance it
we
because
have to
the
stimulate
hills,
as well, the nature part of it.
you can balance it because you got so much hills still
Yes.
that is still room for development, for building, as well as agriculture.
Yep.
It's enough still. So the government have to be, who goes inside now, have to focus on the development of the property in interests of St. Maarten people.
Yep. I believe we fall in that category. And basically what I can say is that we have a very nice and well thought out plan when it comes to agriculture. And the people will be surprised and they will wonder why it is we haven't started, you know. I am looking and seeing how different small organizations are trying to do something when it comes to agriculture, but I have a whole different view, holistic view on the entire thing. And I don't believe in giving that information away just like that, because you want it to be done and executed properly. If you give them nuggets and things, you know, people will run away with it and do the plan, but it's a holistic something, and it's a country concept.
Exactly.
So I encourage everybody though that is interested in the agriculture to continue doing their you know, their little events and things like that, and more people get into that, because we have to reach the point where this country becomes self-sufficient. We have to turn over the knowledge to our children and the generations and after to value the land more, and know that when you possess land that you can produce from your land, you have power in your hands, because it's so many things that can go in a positive and work in a positive direction for those that have the land and can work out the land in many ways, that I say this is something that we do not have to let it go. Do not let it go. Cherish it. Do not, people have the tendency to have things and be looking for things outside of what they have already. We have a lot. People of St. Maarten, are you have? If are you have and are possessors of land, are you having dispute about land? I think this is the time for you to come together and settle those disputes in order for you as a family to come forward, move forward, and be part of the movement of the country in moving in a different direction. Mr. James, I believe this segment we have given people a lot of the information when it comes, because we want to digest it piece by piece by piece. We don't want to overload the people, because remember, we're going back many years back and we're building it back up to where we reach today. So it's a lot of information for people to digest in one time. I believe we provided a lot of information and a little bit more of insight. And my conclusion is that we have to break that cycle of, you know, not cherishing our own, that cycle about, you know, victimizing our own at all times, that cycle about wanting to take away things, you know, take away what belongs to us for others to, you know, to benefit from it. I believe it's time for us to start looking at we, the people, you know, where do we stand? We already know where we stand. We do not like where we stand, and we need to change the position of where we stand. And I believe it is going to be a concept of a mentality change, of unison. We have to come together as a nation, as a country, and let's put our differences aside. It's not about enjoying when others, put each other down. Let's start changing that mentality. Let's come together. Everybody is entitled to have their opinion, but at the end of the day, when you look at the bigger picture, when we come together, we achieve more.
Correct.
Because I believe that and I've met so many professionals that are from country Sint Maarten itself. When you sit down and have conversation, you will realize that if they get the opportunity to do the right thing, they will do it. But they have been victimized so many times, put on the side, so they decide that they're going to stay quiet. And I don't believe in people that have knowledge to be put ostracized or to be put on the side or victimized because of them standing for the right thing. I do not believe in that. I want to thank the audience today for being with us, following the different information that we provided today. I want to give you thanks, Mr. James, for providing us that information again with this part 3 on the series, How Did We Get Here, Country Sint Maarten? Follow us, and if you have questions, remarks, and statements, keep it positive, but come with facts. And if there's any information that you think is important for us to add, please feel free to share that information with us. We want to thank you and have a blessed day. This is the entrance that I think is worthy for us to fix it. And now we are going into the cemetery. So I believe a cemetery is supposed to be looking nicer than this.
Chiefly the Belgium is on this side here.
So say it again, Mr. James.
Oh, here's the Belgium, but majority is the Belgium.
Yeah.
Majority of the Jameses.
Here's a James.
Jameses, quite of cotton pieces and all that.
Okay. It is a very nice place. So
Beautiful.
Let's walk. Let's walk.
The purpose
And
for the
it's a
cemetery
big.
is good. It's for the community. It's for the Sint Maarten people.
It's just a matter of taking off the grass.
Walk across there. The beach is behind the wall. They have to put a wall there.
Show me the wall.
Yeah, the wall is there. But the wave used to come inside here. You have to force the government to put a wall. You have to send the people there to take the sand. It's a retaining wall.
Oh, okay. I see.
But the beach is way beyond there.
By the hostel, right?
The sound is all the way down there. All the bunch of what you call it? Sea grips. Nice to be.
And nobody don't use the beach no more, obviously.
They don't come too much of rock.
Yeah.
You gotta go all out to the front of it. Now when you put this wood breakwater, straight out, the wave will come hit against the breakwater, flatten out the wave, and then the sand just settle the sand and keep coming back.
Okay. This is a nice place, though. This is one of our beaches. We should pay some more attention to it.
The gabler, the boulders on this side, put those things outside there, hit the thing and the water, the wave just flatten out and the sand will just come back. But his intention was to destroy the beach. To come down here, come all between this thing, pick up the sand.
Yeah. So sand was all the way here?
Sand from here, sand, right back the sand was.
Okay.
So the local, he sent the local contractors to come and move the sand just undermine the beach, undermine the cemetery, because he wanted the cemetery to go to another location. That's Almond, what do you call it, Orange Grove. No, Almond Grove. Almond Grove, no. Orange Grove, Orange Grove. They want the cemetery to be relocated. Orange Grove. Because there you have all the police station. So the idea would have been there to put a terminal
Oh, okay.
where the ships could come inside, bring all the, the fuel and everything. Right? So this would be a good thing for his brother. Because over there they didn't have the sufficient land.
Okay.
So he needed to properly for those storage tanks.
Okay. Well, like we say in our previous segments, this is a beach, it belongs to us, the people, and we have to come together and try to do the right thing, mistakes that were made in the past, now is the time for us to correct it, and let's just do the right thing. It's about time that we start doing the right thing and stop the talking. So we definitely going to have somebody do a calculation on how this can be executed with the water boulders, the water breakers, and see how we can get this beach, bring it back. This is something from us. Let's bring it back together. You have a nice table over there. Yeah, man. This is a nice project. Very nice. All right.
To build a retaining wall, put a lot of boulders out there. These boulders weren't here. We had to do it to protect the cemetery.
Okay.
Beach was all over there.
Okay. Thank you for listening to us, and we will continue with our next segment. Have a blessed day.